Sure, it's just another vlog about just another book by just another girl living in a post-colonial world where we try not to die trying. Have some coffee, take a seat, and let's read.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Mean Wonders. So it's been a hot minute and today on New Year's Eve I decided that I would finally film this video. So this is just going to be like a bookish catch-up, and I'll talk about where I've been for the past few months and also talk about the different books that I've read, as well as some of the books that I'm currently reading. So I think my last video was in October, if I'm not mistaken, and one of the reasons why I really kind of had to pause and just take a step back from filming is that I'd been traveling a lot for work, and it was a very emotional thing for me because honestly, since the pandemic, there are kind of two layers to my anxiety. The first one obviously is about COVID and just this worry that traveling would be the irresponsible thing to do. But in this case, it was kind of a responsibility of mine because it was required for work. So those two things were kind of fighting with each other in my mind. Work is also something that I cherish a lot. Yeah. The other sort of layer of it is just the social interaction layer. If I think about it, the last time that I kind of properly interacted with people in a face-to-face setting before all of this was back in like January 2020. So almost 2 years to the day now. And yeah, all of that was just kind of difficult for me to kind of deal with. And while traveling and going on these trips, I was very grateful, first of all, that we were able to take care and, you know, just really be cautious and have the resources needed to be careful, if that makes sense, because not a lot of people, I think, have that luxury of, you know, social distancing, affording just like enough space for everyone to not feel anxious. And so I was very, very grateful for that. And I also got to see so much of the beauty of the Philippines. I will go through each of the places that I went over the past few months and talk about the books that I read in those places. I'll also be putting some footage from those trips in case you guys are sort of feeling the cabin fever, and maybe this will sort of, you know, help scratch that itch. That said, and sort of talking about the beauty of the Philippines, I think a lot of you guys will know by now that recently the Visayas and Mindanao regions were hit by Typhoon Odette, or international typhoon named Rai, and there's just been crazy devastation to some of the areas that I'll be talking about, particularly Siargao. So I will be leaving a lot of donation links below where you guys can help the people from Siargao and from all of these other places like Cebu as well and Negros rebuild, because it's number one, especially in these trying times. It's the least that we can do, honestly. So yeah, alright. So the first book that I read while I was in Davao. And while I was there, I was reading Year of the Monkey by Patti Smith. This book basically talks about Patti's 69th year of life and just the magical trip that she went on and the different people that she met, and how even if it was a time of crazy anxiety for her, she sort of powered through it and was able to move forward and sort of go through that transition from her 60s to her 70s gracefully. This is a book that I picked up because the theme really resonated with me, just sort of going on a journey and not really knowing what to expect, and also of course being in like this state of mind that's at once anxious and also excited. And as usual, I really loved this book. I also like that with a Patti Smith book, you always get this feeling of just good vibes, if that makes sense. Not to say that it's like good vibes without ignoring all of the bad stuff, but just good vibes in the sense that she talks about how, you know, certain trains of thought kind of lead into manifesting certain occurrences in life, and that's just something that I appreciated so deeply, and I really, really love this book. If you guys have read Patty's other stuff like Just Kids or M Train, I would say that this is a lot more loose than those two. I feel like Year of the Monkey doesn't really have like this huge overarching narrative or like binding force that the other two memoirs do. Just Kids is all about her friendship with Robert Mapplethorpe, so that sort of bound into that relationship and the time period which they really shared together. And M Train obviously is about place, so it's about New York, it's about creativity, the artist's life, and because of that, I feel like those two books are a lot more tight in that sense, and I feel like that's good if you are looking for something that is very well constructed, that delivers a singular experience. But if, like me, you're just looking for something to kind of calm you down and something that you can read when you're also being scatterbrained, because like I said, I was there for work, so you know, I didn't really have the luxury to read for long intervals at a time. It would be like 30 minutes a day, or on the flight over like around 2 hours at the most. So yeah, it's very good for that, and I would definitely recommend it if you're just looking for a good read that can kind of tide you over for the time being. Okay, so after that I went to Baguio. Sort of contrary to my experience with Davao, I've been going to Baguio since I was a kid. Basically, every Christmas time, my family and I would go there, and I'd spend my birthday, which is on December 27th, over in Baguio. And so I love Baguio. I was a lot more calm sort of going there and having these trips there. I think we went twice. The first time that we were there, I was reading Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. And I swear to God, like, this book was so triggering. It was so triggering for me. Not in a bad way. Like, it wasn't triggering because it wasn't well written, if that makes sense. It was triggering because it was so well written, and it really reminded me of this really kind of emotionally traumatizing friendship that I had when I was a young boy and when I was a young warthog. And yeah, reading it was really a very emotional experience for me. Sally Rooney has not lost her touch, that's all I'll say. If you were scared of this book being overhyped, I would tell you not to worry. It's just properly hyped. This basically follows four friends, Alice, Eileen, and then like their two love interests. And it just talks about like the entanglement of their lives over the years. As most Sally Rooney books will go, there's no heavy plot. It's not the kind of book that you read for what's going to happen, but for how these things happen and how these people sort of engage with each other. And yeah, it's a very introspective read. There's also a lot of talk about politics mixed in, but again, in that Sally Rooney way, it's all from the point of view of people that are kind of removed from those politics, people who are very entrenched in academia and literature, and yeah, that's kind of my jam. That's that's the background that I come from. So I found this very relatable, and I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it even if it gave me a hard time. I think even after the Baguio trip, I kind of still kept reading this. I think it took me around 2 weeks to finish reading this. And while I was in Baguio, I experienced something super spooky. I will leave a link here of the room tour that I did, and also the footage of me talking about my spooky experience, which is also what kind of kept me from vlogging during that trip. Okay, let's do a room tour. But first, my outfit of the evening. So we're gonna have dinner at Le Chef, which is like the restaurant here. That's my outfit, fam. Pretty simple. This is a wrap dress, but I forgot the wrap part. Like the thingy that cinches at the waist. So I'm hoping my jacket does that. This jacket is vintage, ano, Ralph Lauren. Kala mo naman, may nagpo-follow na bibili, charot. But yes, hard work of Hukay. And this is my favorite, or one of my favorite Kate Spade bags. The dress is from Shein. Thanks, Shein. Okay, anyway, room tour. So, from here, this little foyer area where you can check your OOTD. Yeah, my socks don't match. Then when you go straight, that's the bedroom area. But when you take a right, this is like the vanity. And then my clothes. Halatang short ako kasi. Hindi abot. Wawa. And that other part actually doesn't open. I heard that it's like the part with like the iron and it like folds out. So wag na natin galawin kasi baka hindi ko mabalik. And then this is the bathroom. I feel like this color scheme is every 90s vacation, right? But it's nice, like very vintagey feel, very Wes Anderson. Lactacid, nice. Soap, very interesting. Towels. I always bring my own toothpaste because hotel toothpaste is always a joke. Okay. Hair dryer, thank you very much. I love this thing, you know, for the... I always appreciate it. I brought my own snacks. Let's do a snack haul later. I bought a coffee from the Forest Lodge. They have this really nice cafe there. And then over there is like a writing desk. I have my books. I'll do a video on the books I brought. I mean like a segment of this video. This is all part of the same video. And then a king-sized bed. And some candy. Fan. Size of window. And I really like the view of the window. Like they got me a garden-facing room. So down there is Le Chef. So that's where I will be eating tonight. And yeah. So pretty. And this whole place smells like sugar for some reason. It just does. Hello everyone. Oh my god. Today is the end of the first training day. Oh, and I'm here. And not sure if you can tell, but I moved rooms because okay, I'm a pretty superstitious person. So maybe you shouldn't like take this from me, but just like, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But yesterday I was like, you ever walk into a room and just feel like the energy in that room is super weird and like a little bit off? That's how I felt yesterday in the other room. And last night I fucking woke up at 3 a.m. for no apparent reason, and there was something like hitting on the like cabinet door. It was just so weird and so eerie, and I only got 2 hours of sleep. Jeez. Anyway, so they moved me to this room because I requested it. This is on a better floor, I think. The previous floor actually is their premium floor, but then it's also the floor that's known for having a ghost or like being haunted. So, you know, GG na lang. GG na lang mga friends. Shit. Anyway, yeah. So there's that. Ay. Hopefully I get some shut-eye tonight because honestly I cannot survive like 5 days like that. So yeah. The new room is a lot better. It's technically like a lower grade kind of room because it doesn't have like a king-sized bed. But girl, okay naman ang king-sized bed. Basta walang multo, diba? After the Baguio trip, I think next I went to General Santos. And my experience with the Gensan was really cool. It was my first time being there, and I was just astounded at how beautiful the coastline was and how fresh all of the food was. And while I was there, I started reading Ways of Seeing by John Berger. This is a book that talks about art and talks about just the correlations of thought and imagery. So basically, what the different images in art and how they're portrayed sort of say about the human psyche, and how those two things are linked, and how that link also kind of bleeds over into things like economy, politics, and it was just a very, very light read. Oh, hold on. I actually have it here with me, so I can show it to you. Very small book. I read this mostly on the plane to and from Jensan. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I think if you are someone who really likes art, you'll really, really enjoy this. And it's also the kind of book where you don't necessarily need to have such a wide experience with art. You know, you don't need to be an expert in like the works of Rimbaud or anything to like this. There are also a lot of illustrations in this and a lot of photos from pop culture things as well, like ads, etc. Yeah, and it's a very light read for what it discusses, if that makes sense. I walked into this expecting that it would be kind of a difficult book to get through, or like a very technical book to get through, but it really wasn't, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I finished this actually while I was on my flight to Siargao. So I went to Siargao with my boyfriend because it was our 10th year anniversary, and it was just such a good time. I understand what people say when they talk about Siargao and they just talk about like the magic of Siargao. We really wanted to move there. I'm not even kidding. Like, if the internet was sort of strong enough to sustain working from there, and if I didn't have to go into the office every now and again, I definitely would have wanted to move to Siargao. And I'm just really sad that the typhoon kind of destroyed so many of the great places that we went to. And yeah, and so I think it's so important that we donate what we can. It doesn't have to be a lot, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I finished this on the plane going to Siargao. That plane was like a tiny propeller plane, and it was one of the scariest experiences of my life, like when it comes to flying, because it was pretty turbulent that day. So I just kind of pushed all my focus toward this. And while I was there also, I decided it would be time to pick up a good old poetry collection. So that leads us to my next read, and this is A Village Life by Louise Glück. And Louise Glück, I think she won, was it the Nobel Prize for poetry recently? I think that was early this year, I don't know. Guys, I'm so confused about like time right now, but yeah, she won a pretty big award, and I picked this up because I was interested in poetry that kind of uses nature to further its agenda, if that makes sense. And this is all about a village life, so you know, she's about that provincial life in this one. And I think if there's anything that I've learned about Louise Glück over the years, it's that no two collections are alike. She can write in crazy wild poetry, and she can also write in ways that are very formalist and very traditional, and I'm kind of interested in that. Like, I wanted to see this side of her style, and I hated it. That's all that I can say. As much as I loved Siargao, I hated this collection, and it makes me really sad to say that, because there are some really good poems in this, but I just, for the most part, this is not the kind of poetry that I enjoy. There's just something about like how telling some of the lines were, and the types of rhymes that were used, the types of like musicality within the poems are just really not my cup of tea. So yeah, not the best, not the best book, if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys. And after those work trips, I went on a trip to Boracay. Boracay is like this really famous place just because it has white sands and stuff, but honestly over the past few years, like, the tourism industry has kind of really fucked it up, and they had problems with a lot of like their sewage and stuff like that. But recently they rehabilitated it, so they rerouted like the septic tanks, and they cleaned the water and all of that. So yeah, I went to Boracay with my family for Christmas, and while I was there, I picked up On Freedom by Maggie Nelson. So if you guys are familiar with Maggie Nelson, if you've read Bluets, if you've read The Art of Cruelty or Argonauts, yeah, you might be expecting something from her that reads like a lyrical essay or that reads like memoir, sort of bordering on poetry, or memoir that's told in a way that's very fictionalized and very heavily stylistic, if that makes sense. And this is definitely not that. These are basically literary criticism essays. These are the kinds of things that we would read in grad school, and because of that, you can see I've not really gotten very far into it. These are basically 4 very long essays from Maggie Nelson, and it's very interesting because each of them sort of talks about freedom vis-a-vis something else. So for example, the first section talks about art and freedom and what the art we produce says about our conception of freedom. And I'm really enjoying this so far. One of the most interesting ideas in this for me is Maggie says that we basically talk about freedom the way that we talk about God, which is that we will get in these crazy debates about it without actually knowing or being able to identify exactly what it is that we're talking about. And something she brings up here is sort of the concept of Wittgenstein's indeterminacy, which I really like, which is basically this concept that the more you kind of dwell on something and the more you arrive at like this close correlation between the signifier and the signified, so for example a symbol and what it's supposed to mean, the more types of meaning you generate. And so it's impossible to kind of pin something down to just one thing, but it's still important to kind of talk about the different meanings that could be generated, the different ways of talking about something, if that makes sense. And I like that because it kind of keeps us asking the right questions as opposed to being content with just one set answer. Or it also keeps us from feeling like this crazy frustration that's almost like despair, like borderline despair. And I really appreciate Wittgenstein and also Maggie Nelson for talking about that in that book. So like I said, I'm still reading this. I can't give you a final verdict yet, but yeah, soon, hopefully. And another book I am currently reading is New American Best Friend by Olivia Gatwood. I read Olivia Gatwood's other poetry collection, Life of the Party, and I really loved that. I'm currently in the throes of writing my thesis, which kind of brings me to the next place I visited, which is the Pinto Art Museum. I visited with my friend Austere, who is also doing thesis with me. And the thing is, I was kind of tempted to vlog that day because I feel like it would have been fun, but it would have also been distracting. And Austere and I were there to look at the art and then hang out in the cafe all day writing, because we basically have around 16 days now to finish our poetry collection. So yeah, good luck. Good luck na lang sa amin. But yeah, the Pinto Art Museum is just so beautiful, and I was reading this while we were there, just to try and sort of get inspired for my thesis, and it did kind of do that, although I feel like Olivia Gatwood's style is very much in the style of spoken word, where you kind of hear the poems in her voice as opposed to your own voice, which I feel is sort of the beauty of the written word. You're able to give your experiences over to your audience and kind of allow them to tell the story or to read the poem to themselves. But this is not like that. That said, I am enjoying this so far. I do think that Olivia Gatwood just has a knack for telling poems that are very narrative driven without making it too prosy, if that makes sense, or making it too what's the word? I guess like prosaic. Yeah. So, enjoying this so far, and I will keep you guys updated as well. And last but not the least for this video, I am also currently reading We Don't Know by Nick Lantz. I borrowed this from my friend Austere, and I have never read anything from Nick Lance before, but I'm really enjoying this. I like the diction of this, like the words, the vocabulary, the kind of musicality that it employs. And yeah, it's also very sort of academic, which I realize that I tend to enjoy in poetry. Maybe that's a nerdy thing to say, but there you have it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this catch-up video, and yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and here's to more books and more videos in 2022. Bye!